Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called After New York Explodes. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, and follow us. Also, to let you know, we're going to be having more great celebrity interviews coming up and more breaking news stories. So I want to encourage you to click on the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a new episode. I'd also like to tell you about a service called HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a great service that allows you to purchase live phone calls from your favorite celebrities, so check them out. It's something you can buy for yourself or as a gift for somebody you know. A live 15-second call is $19.95 and a live 30-second call is $29.95. HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now, let's get started. By now, everybody knows that New York is imploding. What most people don't know is what happens after the implosion. Today, we're going to tell you all about that. First, let me tell you the latest about the implosion of New York. The mayor has just actually had the nerve to formally announce that his goal is a major redistribution of wealth. Everyone has always known or suspected that the mayor was all about wealth redistribution, but by formally announcing it today, he has come out and revealed his true colors and removed all doubt. For those people who don't understand the significance of this, let me explain. It means that they are not only going to try and impose higher taxes on people, but I believe they're also going to start going after the wealth people have already paid taxes on previously. Because cities like New York are essentially operating in a state of undeclared bankruptcy and have no money because they've mismanaged it all or stolen it all, they now want to go back and start grabbing more money from people who've already paid their taxes, or people who by some miracle, still have businesses that haven't been forced shut. For those of you who haven't been on YouTube lately, you should check out all the videos of New York City in which people walk or drive through New York and are able to film block after block of closed and boarded up businesses. You know what else people are noticing? They're noticing that they're not seeing all the hookers and prostitutes that they used to see in the city streets. There are still a handful of prostitutes desperately looking for customers here and there, but the vast majority of hookers have disappeared from the street corners. Now, why is that significant? I'll tell you why. During the Great Depression, when things were really horrific in the United States, there were still hookers on the corners trolling for customers. During World War II, when London was being bombed by the Germans every few hours, there were still hookers on the streets trolling for customers. The fact that the economy has been nuked so badly now that not even the hookers are able to make any money should tell you something very substantial. First of all, I'm guessing that their customers are either too broke to afford them or too scared of catching the virus. Either way, this is just another example of an entire sector of the economy being affected by current events. Another problem that's increasing is the escalation of crimes that are not being prosecuted. Things like trespassing or theft or stalking or playing loud music are just a few of the many misdemeanors New York will not prosecute. By the way, this trend is not just taking place in New York, it's also happening in San Francisco and Los Angeles. I mention this because this mentality is now pervasive on both coasts of the United States. First, New York does its best to try and make narcotics legally available to everybody. Then it shuts down the businesses, jobs, and companies and forces them to go bankrupt, or more, it forces them to move to Florida. It's the perfect storm of political incompetence, corruption, and stupidity. When countless people get financially desperate and start stealing and robbing from other people, then the state decides that it's not going to prosecute those kinds of crimes anymore. When they say not prosecute, what they really mean is that the police will no longer show up to 911 calls generated by that kind of activity. So let's discuss what happens after New York's implosion takes place. What happens after we reach peak crime? peak homelessness, peak joblessness, and peak poverty in New York. What will that look like? First, let's start with peak crime. What will New York look like after it reaches maximum crime? Well, let me tell you. People like to use the Mad Max or zombie apocalypse analogy. Actually, it's going to be much worse than that. First, let's start with the gangs. Right now, everybody is accustomed to the gangs running the poor neighborhoods. What they don't realize is that those gangs will now dramatically extend their control throughout the rest of New York City and its most affluent suburbs. They will take over adjacent suburbs and the entire region. They will begin taxing residents for living in the area and driving through the area. The gangs will begin seizing the private homes and businesses of legitimate people simply because they can, and the police and the politicians continue to allow it. Many people believe that the politicians and the police will allow it because many of them are probably already in business with the gangs and getting kickbacks from them. So, when people call the police and complain about gang activity, the 911 operators will ask them to be more specific about what's happening. And if they interpret this to be a misdemeanor crime, then they will not even send the police to help you in many instances. That means that if gangs or homeless people or squatters decide to set up tents on your front or backyard, or they decide to move into your house and occupy it while you step out to the grocery store for an hour, then there is a high probability that the police will do nothing about it. As is already the case in some areas, at first, you will begin to see isolated instances of vigilantism and homeowners and business owners start to take the law into their own hands. Now, at first, all the New York pacifists will claim that's a bad idea until they see some street thug attacking their wife or daughter, and then you will see a pattern emerge. First, they will call the police, who will not respond in many cases, or if they do respond, they will do so in an understaffed and very slow manner, and that may take a day or two. Because handguns are so difficult for honest people in New York to purchase, to own, or to carry, um, people are going to get angrier and more desperate in their efforts to protect themselves. They will purchase mace, pepper spray, large knives, batons, and tasers. You will see a large number of people suddenly carrying baseball bats in their cars. Another thing you will notice is a dramatic increase in the sale of home and car alarms. You will also see an increase in the number of people purchasing them simply to get notified when somebody breaks in or steals their cars. I suspect that because the police department is now understaffed, that they will soon stop responding to 911 calls about home alarms and business alarms going off until they can actually talk to the owner of the home or car and confirm that it's not a false alarm. Unfortunately, doing so will take up precious time and give the criminals even more time to steal the goods and disappear. You're also going to see an explosion in the number of car owners purchasing GPS tracking devices so that they'll be able to go and locate their cars after they've been stolen, because in many instances, the police will be of very little assistance. The next explosion we will see is in peak homelessness. The amount of homelessness we will see will far exceed what is currently being witnessed by most residents. Right now, you're simply seeing homeless tents and people living on sidewalks, under freeways, overpasses, and in the parks. But it will get exponentially worse than that very soon. You're going to see homeless people squatting in your front yard and backyard, in your vacation home, in the backseat of your car, in shopping mall parking lots. You're going to see homeless people living in school parking lots and church parking lots. You're going to see people using drugs and living in a restrooms full of stores, gas stations, and restaurants. The problem with all of them will be that the difficulty of trespassing them from your property, because many police departments will not help you do that. You're going to have homeless people hitting you up for money at every street corner, traffic light, and intersection. I think you're going to see an explosion of something called beg robbing. This is where homeless or street people first beg you for some money, and if you don't say yes and give it to them, then they'll pull out a knife or a stick and rob you because they know the police won't pursue them. You're going to see a total collapse in civility and polite behavior. In fact, those things will be a distant memory as the level of aggression, hostility, and criminality that the homeless will demonstrate towards them, um, because people are going to refuse to surrender what little money they have. You're going to see a dramatic increase in the number of self-defense classes being taught around the city. While the wealthy will be able to hire more security guards, the poor and middle class will have to protect themselves in any way they can. We predict that because of all the street violence that will occur in New York, that you'll soon see an explosion of injured and dead bodies lying openly on the streets, bodies everywhere. The reason for this is that there will be so many people being regularly attacked by street criminals that they will be injured or killed on an ongoing basis as people get more and more desperate. It won't be at all unusual for you to see several bodies lying on the street on your way to work each day. Some of them injured, some of them simply starving, and some of them will be dead. Next, let's talk about peak joblessness. Currently, they're reporting an unemployment rate of about 13% in New York, but no one with a pulse or a brain believes that number represents reality. All you have to do is open your eyes and see how many thousands of businesses and restaurants and bars have closed in the city to know that the real number is probably higher than 50% unemployment. Because of that, finding a job will grow exponentially in difficulty. The problem now is that so many companies are closing or leaving the state that they're taking many of their jobs with them. That means a permanent increase in unemployment for New York. We're forecasting that anyone who still believes that residing in New York for the next few years is a good idea is in jeopardy of threatening their financial survival. We're also reaching a point where many homes and businesses can't be sold at any price. And this is causing segments of the real estate market to just freeze up. What's funny is that there are a number of hedge funds sitting on the sidelines waiting for the real estate market to bottom out so they can come in and buy real estate for 20 cents on the dollar. I suspect that little do they realize that it may be more than 10 years before the real estate market or economy in New York bounces back. I want to thank you for watching and tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews and more breaking news stories coming up in the future. So we want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a new story. Thank you and have a good day.